Oh, happy to be. I'm Sarah Halstead. I'm the church relations liaison with Lutheran Social Services. And I'm so thrilled to have Hector Colon, our CEO, here with us, and also one of our other staff members from our Off the Square program right here in Madison, Shannon Campion. And we're going to have her share a little bit about that particular program in a few minutes. But what I wanted to do, first of all, is just share with you a little bit about our 140th celebration, as we hinted on that before, give you an update on the refugee resettlement program, because I know a lot of people have been very interested in that. And then we're going to go into some time talking about that Off the Square program and really hear more firsthand about what it's like in one of our LSS programs. So, as you heard this morning, we are celebrating 140 years together in ministry, and it is just a delight to be able to do that with people like you. We honestly could not do what we do without you. Everything that I'm going to share with you this morning is because you made this possible. Your gifts, your prayers, you're the reason that this is happening. I like to say that there are miracles happening every day, and those miracles are happening because of you. So keep that in mind as we go through this. In 1882, Pastor Hami came to Wisconsin, and he went to a very rural part of the state. I think in his original book it said the railroads didn't even go there. It was real wilderness. And he said, I'm going here and no further, but he found a spot that God called him to begin a ministry. And if you've had the opportunity to take a look at some of the displays that are upstairs, you'll note that there are items about elderly services and items about children's services. Pastor Hami had a real soft spot in his heart for both of those. Now you have to think about what it was like 140 years ago. The social services that we have today, the systems that we have in place, were not there. We relied on each other, our neighbors, and the church. And when he started this in August of 1882, he opened his home to a few orphans and an elderly gentleman. And from there grew a program that now serves people in every single county in Wisconsin and many areas of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And the programs are vast and varied, and it's really an interesting thing to see how this has grown so much because of you. But I will tell you that as I looked through some of those papers that are on display upstairs under one of the little acrylic boxes, and I saw these applications to what was then called the orphanage or the orphan's home, I read some of the letters and I saw some of the details, and I almost started to cry because I realized that these were real people. This was not just some real interesting artifacts, papers that obviously had been written on a very old typewriter or maybe even with a quill and ink. Um, these were people. And I like to say that a lot of things have changed, but a lot of things have been the same. Obviously, technology has changed, our programs have changed, but the kinds of issues that people face are the same. The letters that detailed a woman whose husband passed away and who she then had to care for the family farm and could not at the same time care for her children. And so her children went to the orphanage. A letter from a pastor that described one of his parishioners who struggled with mental illness and was not mentally capable of taking care of children. And so they were asking for help. And people like you, maybe your grandparents or great grandparents, I'm not sure how far back that went, are the people that helped to make that miracle happen for those children. And likewise for the elderly that did not have a place to go. So we've seen a lot of things blossom and grow over the years. And a few weeks ago, we were in Wittenberg, Wisconsin, at the original site where Pastor Hami started this ministry. And Hector shared some wonderful words as we rang the bell that stands there, a replica of the original bell that was on the Hani site, a bell that each one of the boys rings when they leave that program today. Once for every month that they have been at Hami and received services, and then one more for good luck. And as we were together, we rang it one for every decade that LSS has been in existence. And we did one more for good luck. But I want to share with you the impact, because this isn't just about the history, this is about the impact. And I can't think of a better way to do that than to share with you what Hami had meant to these boys in their own words through a very creative way of expressing this. One of their teachers helped them to write an incredible poem, and we've put that together in a video. So I just want to share that video with you this morning and let you hear the real voices of the boys at the beginning, at the end, and then an actor who's reading through the video as we go along. So let's see if I can share this.
I am Hami. I come into this space. I've been here times before, or someplace like it, or worse, or better, but it's never the right place, only where they tell me to go. I put on a show and stand here all strong, but it's wrong. I'm trapped in my fear, no one near. Rage is whispering in my ear that I'm not good enough, or smart enough, or loved. My peace is where? Hidden in a corner all shy. I'm done with crying, my eyes are dry. And as my heart shrinks, 'cause it thinks there's no one to reach through the sharp bite of mad. The family that I had is not here. There's only fear. I bleed for understanding. I feed on the losses of my unit till their danger is my danger. We are no longer strangers. We are the same ball of pain, pounding in my brain as I circle the drain. And as I strike at you, my fist hits myself. I reach through anger for some connection. I fight from isolation for direction. Where will I go? What is home? My place of regret? How can I forget the neglect? I'm never perfect. Live up to the look in your eyes. I want to find acceptance, but you only criticize me, who I was and will always be. I'm yours. Did you want to have me? But from the dark, there's a spark, and the pain of a bite is only the bark. Then I see, that don't have to be me. This place is what you want it to be. I'm free to find other joys. Weapons aren't my only toys. I'm grateful to find my voice. Hope is a choice. Anger is high, but I won't drown. Opposition has to stand down. The wall of my past that rises up before I have tools to climb it. I'm not always keeping score. I want to be proud, know who I am, and say it loud. Achieve the impossible, soar and fly. I wear a brand new coat and tie. Always believe you gotta have a plan. I came here a boy, but leave a man. Learn to listen, learn to bend. Never again. I'm sorry.
So isn't that powerful? The boy's own words, the boy's own voices at the beginning and the end. I'm sure everyone in this room at some point in your life has found yourself feeling in despair, feeling like you needed help, not able to cope. Here's some very young boys who found some help and were able to turn their lives around because of you, because of your support, because of what you've done for Lutheran Social Services over the year. That is just one example of the many, many programs that we offer. And because Hector had shared the stories from his visit to Hami in his sermon this morning, I felt inspired to share that with you today. So to give you that opportunity to hear that impact. Okay. So as I mentioned, there are many times that we might find ourselves in need or struggling. And certainly a number of people found themselves in that situation when they came to the United States seeking refuge, seeking a new life after leaving unspeakable violence in their own countries. This happens every year, but last year we became really, really aware of it because if you remember, about a year ago, our news was filled with words from the news about Fort McCoy and other places nearby because all these Afghan refugees had come here. And what are we going to do about that? And we heard a lot about it here because we're in Wisconsin and Fort McCoy is really close to us. And it was the largest processing center in the country of all the centers where they brought people to have them placed temporarily while we tried to get them all into their own homes. So Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services, our national partner, who normally works with us, had reached out to us earlier that year because we knew that things were about to change. In the last administration in Washington, our numbers of those we served had dipped down. Unfortunately, I don't think everyone really had an appreciation or understanding of the benefits and the true impact of what refugees bring to our country. So we were down to serving about 100 cases a year during that time while that last administration was in Washington. But we knew we were going back to our old levels. We were going to get back up to about 300. And we were really excited about that. And then the Afghan crisis happened. And they came to us and they said, how many more could you take? How many Afghans could you take? And we told them that we could probably do about 200 if we had the right kind of support from congregations and groups in the area that might be able to help us with that. And I want to share with you that their fiscal year is one that begins in October, and we're coming to the close of that fiscal year, and we are really close to that number of serving them. We have had an enormous amount of support. A year ago, people were calling, emailing, trying to keep up with all the responses to so many people who wanted to help. People gathered items, people gave money, people formed co-sponsoring groups and walked side by side with the LSS staff from the Refugee Resettlement Program to help people get integrated into the community. It was a little tricky because not everything was the same. The Afghans came to us really quickly. Normally, a lot of processing would have taken place before people would come to the US. And now they were at Fort McCoy trying to do all of that really quickly in other places across the country as well. So a lot was happening in a very short period of time, and we're grateful for all of the people who stepped up to help, not only then, but who are there every time there's a crisis, because the fact is there's always going to be a crisis. So there'll always be something. And knowing that we have the support of people to be able to support their needs, no matter what that crisis is that comes up next, allows us to continue this ministry and make differences in people's lives every day. So we had a new kind of twist a little earlier in the year when the war broke out in Ukraine. And then we had people coming from Ukraine. And right now, our refugee resettlement program assists people from Ukraine every Friday. They have a little bit different set of circumstances than the Afghans did, a little bit different set of circumstances than what the normal refugees would have had coming to us. But we're here to serve them and help them get connected to the resources in the community, to help them with legal assistance that they might need in getting the status that allows them to be able to work and stay here and start their lives over. And all of those things happen because of people like you, because of your prayers and your support. So thank you so much for making such a huge, huge difference. We could not do this work without you. So I want to spend the rest of our time this morning giving you a more in-depth look at one of our programs, one that's right here in the Madison area, and that is Off the Square Club. I know that another one of your great interests is helping people who are struggling, who may have mental health issues or addiction issues, and may also be struggling with trying to find a place to live. And we are blessed to have this program in Madison right down off the square. And so I've asked Carla, the program manager, was going to be here today, and unfortunately she wasn't able to join us. But I've asked Shannon to help us with a few questions. I've given her maybe 5 or 6 questions. I'm going to ask her to respond, and then I'm going to open it up to take questions from you as well, so that we can learn a little bit more about the ministry that's happening right here in Madison and how your support is impacting that. Okay. So you already got your mic, so I'll just ask a question. I think I'll sit down here and give you the stand. The first question that I had is, tell us about who your program serves.
Yeah, so this is loud. Sorry. We serve primarily the homeless individuals in Madison. If any of you have walked around, State Street or around the Capitol, you've probably seen some of our clients, some of our members. There's a large homeless population that kind of gathers around there. Hence why we're called Off the Square Club, because we're trying to get them off of the square and in with us. So we also do work though with people who are housed, maybe temporary housing, maybe they have found like really great stable housing, and we do not stop working with them like once they obtain housing, because there's so much more work to be done. But our only requirement is a mental health diagnosis.
Shannon, you said something really awesome as you were talking about those people that you're serving, and you called them members. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I think that's it sounds like it's just a term, but it really represents a lot. Could you tell us what that means when you're saying they're members?
Yeah, so we're considered a club, which is kind of a funny term, I guess, for what it is, because it's a community mental health location, but you have to obtain membership to come. And really, like I said, the only qualifying factor is that you have a mental health diagnosis. But the membership is really about, we have like a set of rules, and it's really about how everyone deserves to be treated. I mean, in life, but we can only control while there, right? So we expect our members, we expect our staff, we expect everyone who's there to treat each other with the same level of respect and care. And I think the membership too is kind of like, they have a sense of kind of ownership over the club, and we really try to encourage that it's the safest possible place for them, where they feel that they belong. So I think that's kind of an aspect of membership as well, is trying to ensure that everyone there really feels that they belong. there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you tell us a little bit about how the pandemic has affected your work or the clients that you're serving, the members of Off the Square Club? How has that affected things?
Yeah. Um, it's affected it greatly. I've actually only worked at Off the Square Club for a little over a year, so I've only worked during the pandemic, but I've obviously spoken a lot with my boss and my coworkers about it. And we had to really limit from my understanding, it used to be, 60, 70 people at a time, maybe more. And now we've had to, limit it, to try to reduce transmission of COVID. And especially when you're working with people who are in like a homeless shelter, the spread there can be really, really quick and really problematic. So at first, when the pandemic, sort of started, it was kind of like on off in terms of, is the club open? Is the club not open? And that was really difficult for our members. And unfortunately, we lost several of our members to suicide during that period of time, which is a loss that we feel really, really greatly. So we've tried to kind of stabilize in a way by staying open, but just keeping our numbers down as much as we can. But one positive aspect that has come about is that we're actually doing outreach as well. So we're located very close to the square, very close to State Street. And so since we can only have about 10 people inside at a time, and our hours are a little shorter as well. Carla, my boss, right when I first started working there, kind of had this idea like, why don't we go to them too? And so we were bringing, waters and hygiene products and food whenever we had food and different things like that. And we were, going into their home. We were meeting them where they were at, and that was such a great idea, and it's been really special. And we've been able to forge a lot of new, um, working relationships with people. And now they're coming into the club too, and meeting us there. But it's been really special too to be outside with them and out, in their space.
Thank you so much. I do think that one of the things, as I mentioned, a lot of things change, but a lot of things stay the same. We have to be able to think on our feet and to adapt and to change. Orphanages were the way of the world when Pastor Hami started, and we don't have orphanages anymore. But we have different systems, and so being able to adapt, that's a great example. Thank you so much for sharing that, even through the pandemic. Could you share an example of how Off the Square Club has made an impact in the lives of your members? I mean, do you have a story you might be able to share?
Yeah. I'm thinking of one in particular. I mean, there's so many. But I'm thinking of one in particular, a man who has a lengthy criminal record. Definitely kind of would scare a lot of people, probably for good reason. He has some, history of violence within his criminal record, an immense history of trauma from just right when he was born, and in and out of all sorts of really bad situations, with adults who were not caring for him properly. And that kind of caused him to, as an adult man, kind of still, in certain ways act like a little boy, and kind of want to act out to get that attention, And so he had police contact, I mean, daily, just about. All the downtown police in Madison know him well, and they really actually really care for him quite a bit. But they knew him well, and they would show up deep when he had a call, because he could be violent at times. And he started working with us couple, for about a year now, because it was just a little bit after I started working there. And he has since after like 1 month, or no, it wasn't even a month, actually. It was a couple weeks of working with us. He has had maybe one police contact since. So and police officers actually like have reached out to us and said like, whatever you're doing, this is amazing. Because he's not, he's getting the positive attention, from staff and from members who really enjoy like joking with him and, listening to him talk and just have a good time with him. And so he's not acting out in those ways to get the negative attention. And he has always been really averse to social workers and to therapists and to anything like that, because he's had so many bad experiences. And he's in therapy right now and loving it, and has a great relationship with his therapist. He does therapy at the club. Actually, we have like a separate room that people have private sort of meetings with, but he does it there because he feels safe there. And he knows that he's supported by us if, something were to happen. And he has housing. He was homeless for 13, 14 years straight. And he has housing, and he feels safe in his housing, which is really a massive thing, because when you're homeless for such a long time, something many of us can't understand and can't relate to, but so many people, when you transition from having, no ceiling above you, no walls surrounding you, and you go into, an apartment or housing, and you have, all these walls, and, you hear all these neighbors and everything, it can feel really claustrophobic. And sometimes people just leave of their own accord because it doesn't feel safe. And he feels safe there. So, I feel like I'm sure I'm missing some of the other positive aspects of his story, but it's been really, we're so proud of him, and we're really proud of his story.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think we take a lot of things for granted, don't we? Um, it's very interesting hearing that perspective about the walls and having a home. I'm guessing that some people that you serve are those who have had challenges for a long time. You mentioned
Yeah.
probably since birth for this person.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that for others, it might be different too. There's probably a wide variety of people. A lot of times we think about people with mental health issues or people that are homeless as them, somebody else. That's not me, that's somebody else. But statistics will tell us that most Americans are only 1 or 2 paychecks away from not being able to afford their home. If they had an accident, if something happened, they couldn't work, they lost their job, that homelessness would be a reality for a lot of people. And I don't know anybody that ever planned on being homeless. I don't know anyone that ever planned on having a mental health issue or suffering. I think we've probably all experienced some stress since the pandemic started. We have a little hint, if nothing else, of what mental health issues might feel like. But my guess is that you have a wide variety of people, and maybe some of them, this is like the first time they've ever had to reach out for that kind of help. Could you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, we have such a variety. I'm thinking of one, what you say, struggling to reach out for help. This is the first time. I'm thinking of one right now who came to us really at first just needing somewhere to sleep during the day. And he kind of transitioned into trusting us with his talking through his like mental health and stuff. So we're really blessed to have a room with like 10 couches that are really easy to clean. Like it's that material that you can just kind of wipe off. And so if you can imagine, it's really hard to get sleep as a homeless person. Um, for a wide variety of reasons, then I could definitely go into the problems with homeless shelters, because I think people oftentimes, when we see people outside sleeping, a lot of people are like, why are they not going to the shelter? And I could speak to that if anyone's interested in that, but I won't go into that yet. But he was working overnight shifts, and he was struggling with drug addiction and alcohol addiction. And so he was making, decent money, but so much of that was going to um, drugs, unfortunately. And so much of that was going towards a former eviction, which is why he was then homeless because of this eviction. So during the day, he needed somewhere to sleep, and he would come to us and just sleep for a couple hours on the couch. And as the weeks went by, he started to open up a little bit, and he, for the first time as a 50-some-year-old man, was realizing I have mental health problems. And he came from a family, probably that a lot of men struggle with, which is, parents who, and an environment that says you can't have feelings, you can't have emotions, you can't be vulnerable. You're the man of the house, you have to be strong all of the time. And so he really internalized all of that. And he was really struggling with, anxiety and depression. And he was actually really excited to hear those terms described and to kind of be like, oh, that's it. That's what I'm experiencing. And he had never really had anyone talk to him about that. And he really struggled to ask for help at first. And then it became kind of exciting for him to be able to talk to people about this for the first time. And he was really kind and would always, say things like, I'm saying was in the past tense because he's actually at a rehab facility right now, which is amazing. And he took that, he made that decision of his own accord and took care of that all himself, which we're incredibly proud of him for. But um, he he would always say, like, this is all thanks to you guys that I know that I have these problems, that I'm getting help. And I mean, he really just it was him who did it, but he just needed someone to listen and maybe describe some things for him and say, this is what depression is, this is what anxiety is, what does it look like for you, or is this what you're experiencing? um and once he was able to kind of start that process, of opening up and talking it through, it became much easier for him to ask for help. Easy, enough to then go to rehab. So to be able to kind of facilitate his sort of opening up a bit and opening up his vulnerabilities a bit. I don't know if I answered your question.
No,
but-
that's great. Thank you. Appreciate that. So, Shannon, can you tell us a little bit about the future of Off the Square Club? I hear there's a possible location change. What can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about what's coming up or what you know at this time?
Oh, I feel like I don't know much. Because we just we don't have a place yet.
Well, let me backtrack for those. We'll give you the backstory on this question. So currently, Off the Square Club is at St. John's Lutheran Church,
Mhm.
just off of the square, and they are undertaking a prayerful mission to take a look at their facility and to try to decide what is the best route for their congregation, and have decided that a building project is in their future, which would also include some demolition and some rebuilding. And as a result,
Entirely demolished.
yeah, and as a result, we wouldn't be able to have our program in the same space that that building is while that demolition is happening and while that new building is being constructed. So at least temporarily, we're looking for another space that would be appropriate, to be able to continue to do that program as an interim
Yeah.
kind of space. I don't know, Hector, do you have anything more on that one that you're welcome to add if you know more?
Sure. I would just, if I could just first say thank you for all you do for the people we serve at Off the Square Club. I know that I've been there and I see the love and the care that you provide and others provide there. It's really incredible. So thank you so much for all you do. The people that come there feel loved. I would say that, yes, what you explained, a little uncertain of where we're going to go. We have Pastor John Brown from Bethel that has agreed to maybe get some donors to help us if we had to relocate. And so we'll be reaching out to him and other donors in this area if we had to move. I want to share one thing relating to the move and the possibilities that could bring. One is this word off the square. think about that. This is to get them off the square. I don't know if I feel too comfortable with that. I know that and I shared that with staff, and oh, that's our brand, and that's who everybody knows us off the square. And believe me, this community, the businesses and on the square really respect all we do and support us. But think about that. Is that stigmatizing? Is that we want them off the square? I don't know. So maybe if we go to a different location, we could rethink about our name. But just wanted to share that.
I thought for some reason that the name was off the square because it's like right off the square.
Yeah. I was just
Yeah.
gonna say, I think that that's part of it too.
Yeah.
I know in Madison,
I
they talk about being
understand.
on the square or off the square. Yeah, yeah. Yes. Yep.
I've been around forever, Nancy Abraham, as one of the founders of NAMI. Off the Square Club was off the square.
Mhm.
And it wasn't to deliberately necessarily get people off the square.
Mhm.
It was that the physical location was off the square.
Yeah.
And it was a house. Then it was a building at the end of, I think it's Gorham, that
Mhm.
has that curve that becomes University Avenue, and that was purchased expressly for off the square. And many people, including me in my very paltry way, contributed to the purchase of that building and so on. Then St. John's was involved because that initial house was right next to St. John's. Then it came back to St. John's, but the name was never to get the people off the square. In each physical location, it was off the square.
Mhm.
Then I also want to say the reaching out that pivoting on a dime to go to people is great. And as you know, PACT has demonstrated that for 50 years, that you go to where the people are if you're wanting to make impact and if you're wanting to build trust.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful to hear that you're building the trust with individuals who in turn. The other point I want to make is off the square was primarily initially for people with the brain disorders of serious and persistent mental illness.
Mhm.
So that's all I have to say at this moment.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
You know, one of the best parts about celebrating history and impact is to know that this is a shared history. I so appreciate your comments, and it's wonderful to hear from people who have been a part of
Yeah.
this ministry and support for so long, and to share the bits and pieces that maybe we did not know. So thank you so much for sharing that this morning. Pastor Katie, did you want to share something?
I do. I want to thank Hector for lifting up destigmatizing mental illness and LSS commitment to that. I also want to thank you for being here today from all of us. We're so thrilled to be your partner. This summer, I was on sabbatical and I was listening to an interview with a man named Thomas Insel. And just so you know who he is, you do, Nancy, you do. He was the director of the National Institute of Mental Health for 13 years. He was the special advisor to mental health care to Governor Gavin Newsom in California, to the point where he got called California's mental health czar.
Mm.
He had a book released in July of this year called Healing. And here's what he said in the podcast. I just need to read it to you because he talked about clubhouses.
Mm.
And I didn't know this. And I was very moved to the fact that we get to be a part of this
Yeah.
at Midvale through our partnership with the Off the Square Club and everything you're doing. He said, the interviewer said, my bias going into the book was we have quite poor mental treatment for most mental illnesses, much worse than what we have for other kinds of illnesses. And you argue throughout your book called Healing, that's not true. Why? Thomas Insel says, because it's not true. We actually have good treatments. I'm not here saying that a medication is a cure for any of these mental illnesses or that psychotherapy works in all cases, but a combination of medication, psychotherapy, and most of all, recovery services. the kinds of things that we often call enhanced care management, but teams that go out and actually proactively engage people, build trust, ensure that people get to a clubhouse where they can spend the day and get job training, get help getting back to school. These things are the sort of things, these sort of clubhouses, job training, supportive housing are massively successful and massively helpful. These people who run clubhouses, and then Ezra Klein, the interview, interrupts and said, and what is a clubhouse? A clubhouse is a place where someone with a serious mental illness can spend the day. They get meals, they get help how to find a good job. Now, some of them get training for a job in the clubhouses. Some clubhouses provide mental health care. It's a sort of sanctuary for people. I like to say they provide people place and purpose, social support, healthy environment, get back on their feet. But my point is that, and then he makes a political point about how we as a nation spend money on healthcare. But I want to move away from that and just lift you up and lift up what you're doing and the fact that we get to have a partnership with you, and that here is someone of a very high position saying clubhouses really work.
Wow.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you. So before I turn it over to questions from the crowd, I wanted to ask one more question of you. Can you tell us a little bit about how people can help? Are there certain things that you need, or that people can donate, or what how can we be involved? I mean, obviously the support is so appreciated. It's making this possible, but are there other things that you need?
Yeah. In terms of like things to donate, we always suggest $5 gift cards to Walgreens. Those can be so beneficial. A copay of like $1 or $2 can sometimes stop our clients from getting their medication, and that is the God's honest truth. I've seen it many times. And so that's really amazing. You can also, you can get a million things at Walgreens. And it's also right on the square. So it's an ideal location. You can get your medication, you can get, food, Band-Aids, like whatever. So $5 gift cards to Walgreens are amazing. Also bus passes. We do 2 rides primarily. And those are really, really helpful as well, because not everyone is right on the square. We do have people who were, following through, even as they have housing. They still, of course, need a lot of support. And so they're coming from where they live or different things, or they're busing to their jobs from the club or things like that. So those 2 things I really want to give a shout out to, because those are really, really powerful gifts. I also would say we always appreciate clothing donations. We have an area where our members can just, rifle through what has been donated, and people take things every day, especially socks and underwear. Those things oftentimes just get thrown out after a decent amount of use if you don't have access to washing them regularly. We do have, we're really, really lucky to have a washing machine so people can wash. But, if you're used to not really having access to that, a lot of people just, you wear it for a while and then you toss it. So that as well. And then I would just say being kind to people really is incredibly powerful, and trying to not be judgmental of those that you see walking a different life than you. I always like to say to myself, really, that I cannot judge, anyone, but I can certainly not judge somebody whose life I have not walked in. And so a lot of our members deal with addiction. And I think there's so much stigma around mental health, and there's possibly even more stigma around addiction. And as we know, those go really hand in hand, and addiction is a disease. And so I would say besides gifts and donations is just trying to be loving to those around us who are dealing with things that we maybe don't understand.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So I wanted to give some time to you if you have questions that we can help to answer. Yeah, I'll give you the.
Yeah, how you doing? Well, three things. One, we'll find you a new place if they do develop that place. So wouldn't worry about it.
Thank
Just
you.
do the great work you're doing. Second, could you talk about the demographics, male, female, age, and so on and so forth? And third, do you have any, other than showing love, which is a great thing, do you have any interactive volunteer opportunities? Other, giving gift cards is great, but do you have ones we can actually interact with
Yeah.
your club members?
Yeah. Demographics, that's a great question. Everybody. I feel like we have a fairly even split actually of men and women. All races. I would say primarily I would say kind of a split between white and African American, but we do have people of other races as well, but that would be the primary. In terms of age, everybody is older than me, and they make that known regularly. But I would say primarily over 50, but not everybody. We have people in their 30s, 40s. Not as many people in their 20s. Just me.
I remember visiting Off the Square Club before the pandemic hit, and I remember talking with, and you're right, there were all ages. It was just a
Yeah.
wonderful potpourri of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there was one mother, a young mother with a small child, so it really was my stereotype was challenged because I saw, wow, it
Yeah.
really could be anybody.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's a great point. We're in adult services, but we do have parents, and we're always thrilled when they bring their children in. And we have like some puzzles that I always bring out for them and stuff. But yeah. Yeah. And also I feel like it might be important to say for demographics, kind of like what mental illness is. And I would say largely we deal with schizophrenia, and also largely just a lot of trauma. And those are often overlapping, but not always. So a lot of PTSD, a lot of schizophrenia related disorders, that kind of a thing, and a lot of addiction as well.
Thank you.
It is such important work because everybody, no matter who, where, what,
Yeah.
we all need to be supported and listened
Yeah.
to. That's like the number one thing.
Yeah.
And part of Bill's question that I think we should maybe address is, are there ways for us to interact or be involved or be in a program or
Yeah.
help someone get from here to there or
Yeah.
whatever? Are there ways? Do you have
Yeah.
volunteer opportunities?
Sorry, I've totally forgot about that part of the question. That's a great question. And I think there was a lot more pre-COVID. And now I think is probably a great time to start thinking about that again. I wish my boss was here to answer, because I don't want to say anything that would be incorrect, because she has a lot more. She talks with the county, who the county is they give us some funding as well, and they have set some limits on like how many people can be in. Yeah. But
I can tell you that if and when that move takes place, we're probably going to need a number of volunteers to
Oh,
help box
sure.
things up and help us
Sure.
get things. I mean,
Sure.
she talked about that incredible closet of goodies for people to dig into. There's a lot of stuff that's going to
Yeah,
need to
there's a lot
be,
of stuff.
kind of bagged or boxed up
Yeah.
and transported. So looks like you have another question.
I do have a question, not a dissertation. So what I haven't heard is, what is the relationship of LSS to Off the Square Club? And when did that happen? And So how does that interact or react to the county
Hmm.
and to?
Hmm.
That is thank you so much for your question. It's my understanding that Off the Square Club is a program, one of many programs that LSS runs. I'm not exactly sure when it began or when we took on that program, but I can tell you that just like refugee resettlement or HAMI with the youth and family program, or our Birth to Three programs, or there are a number of programs out there that maybe weren't always a part of LSS, but Off the Square Club is an LSS program, so it's entirely funded through
Mhm.
LSS and that relationship with the county. I can't tell you, but I think our program manager might have been able to answer that question.
I
So-
mean, it's more recent, but I mean, not like the past couple of years. I would say the past 10, 20 years it happened.
It's an excellent question. Let us find that answer for you and get back to you on that, because I think that's a really good. I'm sorry? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So she was asking, thank you. She said, thank you as far as trying to figure out when it was. Is it a part of Clubs International, like Yahara House? And so she was asking about that relationship. Thank you for reminding me to repeat that question out. So I think we'll have to do a little digging to get the answers for you. I think there's, like many things as we go through history, I can't tell you, as we were preparing for the 140th, even with the archives that are upstairs, which, by the way, if you haven't checked out, please take a look at. There was a lot of, okay, what is this? Where was this from? How did that fit in? When did that start? We're still learning some of those things. Some is a little bit self-explanatory, but others we're still learning. And truly, any of you who have been a part of that history and that story, we really value your input and your sharing. There's a wall of hearts out there for people who can write messages, either a word of hope to one of our clients that are being served, or maybe, hey, look, I'll tell you, as church relations liaison, almost every single congregation that I go to visit, somebody comes up to me to say that either they were adopted through LSS or they adopted a child through LSS. And so if you have a personal connection, or you just have a wish or prayer, write it on that little heart and add it to the wall for us. We would really appreciate that. Yeah.
I just have one more practical question. So let's say someone bought Walgreens gift cards, for
Mhm.
example, how would we get them to you?
You're welcome to drop them off with us. I think that, I mean, you could mail them if you, yeah, you don't live in the neighborhood, you're saying? Oh, you do? Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, yeah, you're welcome to drop them off. I can give you our address and phone number. Oh, you know? Okay. We're, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Having a,
Maybe people could drop things off when they come to church. Like we have a corner for St. Mark's
hmm,
food pantry. Maybe we could have a corner that was for
Yeah.
off the square, and people could bring things there. And I would actually be happy to volunteer, except that I'm not here in the winter, to deliver those things or to somehow get them to you.
yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you so much. I love the creative thinking, just like Shannon had described, of, kind of turning on a dime here. If they can't come to us, let's go to them. It's, how can we help? What do you need now? What can we do? Thank you so much for that spirit of
Mhm.
cooperation and
Mhm.
partnership. I really appreciate that. Oh, here we go.
It's probably none of my business, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Are you a student in any of the schools and universities?
I graduated from Madison, University of Madison, with a psychology degree
Okay,
right before I started working.
okay.
Yes.
But not that you had to, but I thought you're pretty sharp.
Oh,
She is pretty sharp.
thank you. That's so kind. Thank you.
For what it's worth, I got one of those psychology degrees from UW-Madison too, way back in the 80s when I was in the UW marching band. I'll
Woo.
tell you, it has served me well. So thank you. It was
if-
fun. Well, listen, I don't want to take too much time, but if there's one or two final questions, we'll take those and then we'll give you some.
Yeah,
some time here.
Carla, I was just curious, I'm sorry, Shannon, I was just curious, what are the barriers to using the homeless shelter?
Yeah,
sum
yeah, I
them
guess
up.
I kind of hinted at that. Yeah, so I would say, you know, for our members specifically, and that's who I'm interacting with, they have mental health problems. And I would say probably, you know, not everyone at a homeless shelter does have mental health problems. And ours have maybe more intense, I can't think of a better word, more intense mental health problems than others. Yeah. And so maybe we have a lot of members who are actively experiencing psychosis on a regular basis. And so if you're kind of in the headspace that, you know, the government is tracking me, you're not going to go into like a group environment where you believe that you're going to be tracked. It actually feels safer to be outside. Our members are also, you know, sometimes preyed upon by other members of the community. And so do you want to go and share a room and try to sleep in a room with maybe people who have attacked you, maybe have stolen from you, maybe have beaten you up? We also have members who are regularly kicked out of the homeless shelter because maybe they're screaming or like banging a wall or something like that. That's not to say that our members are regularly screaming or banging a wall, because it's not a regular occurrence. But when you're dealing with something like schizophrenia or something like intense trauma and something has triggered you, that can happen. That's just, you know, part of it. And so I think some of the behaviors that our members exhibit can be scary to others who are not well versed in it. And so they're kicked out, or they're isolated, or they're treated really poorly by even, I don't mean to speak ill of the staff, because I believe that's a very difficult job. And I think a lot of them are probably really wonderful. But I don't believe that they probably have the adequate time or resources or training to really deal with the level of need and care. So there's a million different reasons. There are also, I should point out, there's sober places. So if you're dealing with addiction, active addiction, and you're using, you cannot go there. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I realize we're just about to the end of our time, and I want to let you know that if you have other questions, we'll be here afterwards. You can talk with us too. But I want to just circle back to the thought that everything that we've talked about, all of your incredible questions, all of your ideas, all of your history, everything that you shared is such an incredible gift to all of us. And we are so, so grateful for that. Thank you so much for your partnership. Truly, every one of these success stories that we've shared is because of you. So thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your support. We look forward to the next 140 years of working together and making a difference. It'll look a little different. There'll probably be some of the same challenges, but we know we'll adapt and we'll be able to continue to serve this way. So thank you. God's blessings to you all. We'll stay again later on to answer.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank
For-
you.
Just a quick announcement. Next week, we'll have Pastor Larry Pino, who's going to talk about war and scripture to our group based on some reading and research that he's been doing in light of the situation in Ukraine. So hopefully you come back.